Ladies and gentlemen, imagine discovering a power so profound that it sharpens your mind, strengthens your purpose, and unlocks a version of you the world has never seen. Not in the noise, not in the crowds, but in the silence you've been avoiding. What if the very thing you fear, being alone with your thoughts, is the key to unleashing the genius you've carried your entire life? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may completely redefine the way you think about solitude and about yourself. There is a remarkable shift that happens when we step away from noise, the pressure, and the constant rush to keep up. In solitude, we are not escaping the world, we are reconnecting with ourselves. It is in those quiet moments that clarity emerges, ideas take shape, and the deeper reasons behind our actions become impossible to ignore. Solitude is not the absence of connection, it is the strengthening of it, because when we understand ourselves better, we show up in the world with greater purpose and intention. Most people chase genius as if it is something external. They believe it belongs only to the gifted, the special, the chosen few. But the truth is far more empowering. Genius is not a talent you find, it is a capability you awaken. And the ignition often begins when you allow yourself the space to think without judgment, to reflect without interruption, and to explore possibilities without the weight of expectations. Solitude gives you the space to ask the questions that matter. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What do I truly care about? What impact do I want to make? These questions don't get answered in crowded rooms or in the rapid back and forth of daily life. They get answered in the quiet corners where your thoughts are no longer competing with the world. The strategic power of solitude lies in the discipline to pause. When we pause, we begin to see patterns. We begin to understand the difference between what feels urgent and what is genuinely important. We begin to shift from reacting to creating and creation. True creation requires depth of thought, emotional stillness, and the courage to sit with our own ideas long enough for them to mature. When you embrace solitude, you sharpen your perspective, you tap into insights you didn't know you possessed. You start generating solutions instead of simply managing problems. You begin to listen not to the expectations around you, but to the voice within you that has been waiting to be heard. This is the place where vision is born. This is where bold decisions originate. This is where your inner genius wakes up, not with noise, but with intention, clarity, and conviction. And when that inner genius begins to speak, something powerful happens. You start trusting yourself more. You start recognizing that the answers you've been searching for were never out there. They were always within you, hidden beneath layers of distraction, noise, and comparison. Solitude strips those layers away. It gives you the courage to see yourself without filters, without performance, without the need to impress. In that honesty, your real strength begins to surface. Solitude also teaches patience, a skill often overlooked in a world obsessed with speed. When you spend time alone, you learn to sit with unfinished thoughts, unresolved ideas, and imperfect plans. You learn that progress is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it's subtle, like the quiet strengthening of a foundation before a structure rises. This patience becomes a competitive advantage. It allows you to refine your thinking rather than rush decisions. It gives you the ability to move with intention instead of urgency. And over time, it helps you build a kind of confidence that cannot be shaken because it wasn't built on applause. It was built on clarity. As this clarity deepens, your ability to influence the world grows, not because you speak louder, but because you speak with purpose. People are naturally drawn to those who know why they do what they do. Solitude helps you discover that why. It sharpens your voice, aligns your actions, and strengthens your resolve. When you emerge from that quiet space, you bring with you ideas that are more meaningful, messages that are more authentic, and a sense of direction that inspires others, not by pressure, but by example. There is also a profound creativity that comes from solitude. When your mind is not constantly reacting, it starts imagining. It begins connecting dots that were always there but never had the space to align. You start seeing opportunities where others see obstacles. You start envisioning solutions before problems grow too big. Innovation doesn't come from noise, it comes from awareness. And awareness blossoms in moments of stillness. Solitude becomes a personal strategy, one that strengthens your leadership, sharpens your focus, and deepens your sense of purpose. It serves as a reminder that growth is an internal process long before it becomes an external result. When you give yourself permission to step back, you give yourself the power to move forward with greater wisdom, clarity, and conviction. And as you move forward with that renewed conviction, you begin to notice how solitude reshapes the way you approach challenges. Instead of reacting out of fear or pressure, you start responding with intention. You create space between stimulus and response, a space where thoughtfulness replaces impulse. In that space, your decisions become wiser, not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you've learned how to listen to yourself before listening to the noise around you. This shift transforms setbacks into lessons and obstacles into opportunities for refinement. Solitude also strengthens resilience. When you learn to be comfortable alone, you become less dependent on external validation. You realize that your worth isn't determined by approval but by authenticity. You stop chasing the next compliment or fearing the next criticism. Instead, you anchor yourself in values that are unshakable because they come from within. This internal grounding allows you to face uncertainty with steadiness. You become adaptable, flexible, and courageous because you're no longer driven by fear of the unknown. You're guided by a deeper trust in your own capacity to figure things out. As this resilience grows, you discover that solitude enhances emotional clarity. You start understanding your triggers, your motivations, and your patterns. You begin to notice the difference between what drains you and what fuels you. This awareness becomes a compass, helping you make choices that align with your long-term growth instead of your short-term comfort. You become more intentional in your relationships, more selective with your energy, and more present in your interactions. People feel this presence, they sense the calm, the groundedness, the depth, and because of that they trust you, not because of what you say but because of the clarity behind it. Moreover, solitude cultivates a sense of responsibility. When you spend time with your thoughts, you become more aware of the impact of your actions. You begin to recognize that leadership is not about being in front, it's about being aligned with purpose. It's about making choices that reflect your values even when no one is watching. Solitude gives you the courage to uphold these values consistently. It strengthens the integrity that others can feel, even if they can't explain why. And perhaps the most powerful gift of solitude is that it allows you to envision a future that is truly yours. In silence, you can dream without limits, imagine without fear, and strategize without interference. You can build a vision that isn't shaped by the expectations of others, but by the potential you've begun to see in yourself. You said,